Okay, finding a phone case that is protective, functional, as well as fitting your style and budget is kind of a tricky task. If you're looking at carbon fiber cases on the low end, there's actually quite a few options available. Starting with the LEG, which is our $15 case, it comes in pretty unassuming packaging. As you see here, it just says case for smartphone. I was reasonably skeptical when taking this case out of the box, as I wasn't sure what we were going to get for $15. And as you see, my skepticism was met with a case that is not carbon fiber, but plastic. I have to say I'm not really sure why I'm surprised, but based on the pictures, I really thought it was going to be some kind of carbon fiber. I guess I thought that since it was dark and had the pattern, maybe it was a lighter layer of carbon fiber. But when looking at the picture again, I see that the Apple logo is on there, so there must be some level of transparency, which usually is indicative of some sort of plastic bag. In this situation, I'm thinking in the picture they used a darker iPhone, which would make the plastic kind of give a carbon fiber effect. Another thing I wanted to mention is that the pictures seem to imply that you can use MagSafe. While this is true in the sense that you can still wirelessly charge, this becomes not as true as the MagSafe accessories aren't going to stick to the phone. But I guess it makes sense that to meet this price point, any sheet of carbon fiber on the back, thin or large, was going to make it too expensive for them to put out at $15. But looking at it closer, this case technically gets by, as there are very thin pieces of what I think is carbon fiber on the sides of the case. So I'm gonna have to give it a pass. Even so, this isn't a terrible case by any means, given that this is the low end of what carbon fiber cases have to offer. When installing this case, it's really just one step. You put your phone down and it basically goes right in, so no stress there. In fact, there really isn't any snapping in, so my thought is that your phone could probably come out just as easily, so be careful on that one, because immediately you notice that the edges really aren't that sturdy at all. And this makes a lot of sense as to how the phone was able to pop in so easily. In fact, really the only part of this case that's giving it any rigidity is the plastic back. And even then, there's a decent amount of flexibility. So if you're looking for a case that's really sturdy, this probably isn't going to be the one. But most cases in this price range really don't do that anyway. And while this won't win any awards for drop protection, it's surprisingly comfortable when holding it. And if you're wondering how this is going to look on your phone, know that the plastic is decently tinted. So it's going to look like a pretty shaded version of whatever color your phone is. I have the blue version, which I thought was going to completely ruin the carbon fiber effect. But as you can see here, it kind of does it. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but this is the best view that I got. And I have to say, it doesn't look too bad. The plastic back on the case is generally slippery, but the edges being textured with that carbon fiber type texture, and with the corners that have this weird square texture, there's a decent amount of grip on the edges of the phone. So make sure you keep your hands wrapped around your phone when you're carrying it around. This is another one of those cases that opts to have the buttons covered, and when clicking them, they feel pretty clicky, but they're also decently mushy if you're used to not having a case at all. But if you're used to like a bulkier case or anything else that covers the buttons, it's probably not going to bother you too much. I have to say that the cutout for the ringer switch here is kind of small. If you have larger fingers, you may have a harder time flipping the ringer switch on and off. There are cutouts for the speaker grill, the microphone, and the charging port, so no obstacles there. I would say that the cutouts for the speaker grill and charging port are decent size, but I don't find myself ever really being bothered by this. So let's just say that most charging cables are probably going to be able to fit in this cutout. The last cutout you're probably wondering about is for the cameras. And for this case, it maintains that flimsy plastic around the edge of the camera. Most cases nowadays are not leaving a lot of clearance between the lenses and the camera bump. For this case, this margin is possibly the thinnest I've seen. So if you put your phone lens down on uneven surfaces a lot, this might be a little bit riskier for you. And yes, even though the camera cutout bump is smaller for this case, there's still a rock. When making this case, they did keep in mind that the speaker grill on the top of the iPhone 13 series is moved up a bit, so the cutout does display that. The inside edges of the case are going to be that flexible plastic that we've been talking about, as this kind of makes for the whole border of the phone case. In the corners, there's these little cutouts that are potentially for impact protection. Sorry, the only way that I could show it is with this shot, and I know it looks like we're telling scary ghost stories, but now you know that there's little pockets in there, so maybe that would do something if you drop your phone on the corners. There isn't any branding on this case whatsoever, so if you like cases that are really simple and don't have any logos on them, then this is going to fit your style really well. Overall, for $15, you get what's kind of a carbon fiber look on the back of the phone. And if you have a black or darker gray phone, you will maybe be able to sell the look. However, after getting this case brand new, there's a little section that looks like it's maybe peeling away. I can't really tell as it's really small, so it's possible that it's also just some sort of manufacturing defect that doesn't affect the functionality. If you're interested in what the high end of this market has to offer, check out this video as I go over some of the more expensive carbon fiber cases.